Ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday, October 20th, 2010. It's Spirit Day, so I got my purple shirt on. It is Friendday Wednesday, and this is the Day 9 Daily where we learn to be a better gamer. We have a very special guest on air today, but I wanted to show you something really cool that happened to me. I don't know how this happened, but you'll note that this is a sweater. But when I went to put on this sweater this morning, because like for once in a million years it's actually rainy, one of these sleeves is completely missing. I have no idea where it went. Literally, a sleeve just disappeared. Like, I'll actually show you that. Like, see, here's one, and then there's just like a hole. It's like a half sleeve. So I'm very interested in the case of the missing left sleeve on Sean's sweater. So I actually wore it to school today. And people were giving me funny looks, but I don't have any other sweaters, so I just said, well, I guess I'll have 75% of my body warm, and it was toasty. So, we are going to be examining some of QXC's drop-oriented play, because everyone was all oogling over it at IEM and Comic-Con, and of course the ooglage continued at MLGDC. And so he's here. Yesterday we did the the Newbie Tuesday, focusing a little bit more on how it's possible to mess drops up and what can potentially go wrong. So we have QXC, the man himself here. QXC, how are you?
Doing pretty good. How's it going?
Dude, it's doing really good. For any of you who didn't know, QXC goes to Harvey Mudd College. I went to Harvey Mudd College. I'm all excited about that. I think that's so cool. Except for the fact that you apparently just had midterms.
Yeah, tournaments kind of came as the best possible time ever, like right in between 4 or 5 midterms.
Did I ever tell you the story of how I just like accidentally didn't take a midterm? It was terrifying. Well, okay, so there was this, because you know how they have like required math courses at Harvey Mudd that like everyone has to take, like no matter what the major. I think it was one of the linear algebra ones, and I just slept through it for like a week because like I was exhausted studying for other midterms and all this stuff. And I remember I walked in and I thought, man, I wonder when we're gonna have that math midterm. And he just starts passing back graded midterms, and I was like, oh my god, I don't want to be caught like an idiot, because you know they're like passing the packet of midterms around, and they pass me the packet. I don't want to just grab it and immediately hand it off to the person on my left. So I take it, hide it, slip my homework into it, and then just pull the homework back out of the packet again. Pretty smooth, right? That worked out pretty awesomely. And then, of course, I was worried that they would review problems, because if they did, I would have to, like, leave the room and, like, never come back and then go talk to the professor. But fortunately, he just showed the average, which mysteriously had fewer tests than there were students. And he was like, ha, 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 which means someone didn't take the midterm. And I was like, oh, God almighty. Oh, God. And everyone's like, who's that idiot? How do you not take a midterm? So then I had to go to the professor and be like, I inadvertently didn't take the midterm. Had no idea about it. And he's like, well, that's highly unusual. And he like went to the math department chair and was like, what do we do? And he's like, your student did what? Like, no one knew what to do with me. So I took the midterm then, and I don't remember what happened. I guess I blocked it out. But we're going to go into one of your games against Inca. Now, before we even do any of the games, any special things you'd like to let us know about what your plans were, what you've kind of been into, or are you in the mood to jump right into it?
The main thing that I'm trying to figure out is how to deal with Colossus heavy play, and
Really?
the best thing I've come up with so far is drop heavy play.
Oh, you mean like in general, like, because I was going to say your drop heavy play seems to deal pretty damn well with Colossus.
Yeah, I mean, I like using drops in general. It jives really well with how I look at the game and
With who
my
you are as a
aggressive personality.
Yeah.
Kind of like a wildebeest in that regard. But
elaborate on this.
so, anyways, Colossus. It's really tough because when Protoss goes heavy Colossus in their army, they get an army that's fairly mobile and very hard to be cost efficient against. It's really tough to come up with an equal cost Terran army that beats like 6 Colossus supported by gateway units.
True. I mean, it's hard for like any race to deal with that. Even other Protosses. That's why you end up with awesome War of the World style in that matchup. But I want to go ahead and jump right into your game. You have Inca at the left, and you're at the bottom. Or I'm going to go ahead and hit play in 3, 2, 1, hit and play. And I'm also just going to hit times 2. And I already did it, so I hope you've caught up with me. So you have these close positions on Temple. Now, does this immediately encourage you to do more or less dropping?
I actually like when the... Okay, I was going to make a joke, but it was too lame. Yeah, when there's close air positions, I almost always go for drops.
Okay, so I just hit a minute, and I'm just slowing down now to the faster speed because I want to make sure that I get this question out of the way. Like, how different of a change is it between when you're really, really close in positions and versus if you're, like, for instance, cross map to where he's scouting in the north right now?
So when we're close positions by ground, I generally favor more unit-heavy builds, because if you go fast drops, you drop their main, and then they're like 50 feet away from your main, and they just counter all in you, and that's pretty tough to deal with. But if you're cross map positions or close air positions, that's not as much of a problem.
So you kind of treat cross map positions the same as close air positions. Like, for instance, if you were bottom and you were against a left position like you are now, you'd treat that somewhat similarly to being at the bottom and if he was at top. But, like, if you were against right, that's when you'd do the big change?
That's when I would favor changing. I'm not sure I actually would. I'm pretty stubborn, and I really like my drops.
But that's an interesting thing because I think most people do the same thing against their opponent unless they're in close positions by air. That's when I generally see people do the big change. I think that's interesting that the one spot where you favor changing is when you're close by ground. And I guess that's something that just kind of happens when you're favoring crazy drops. So I was talking in yesterday's daily a lot about how important it is to have your strategy integrate with the drop itself. Drops are just, kind of useful, fun things to do. But, like, if you rush for medevacs and then, like, don't really do anything useful with, like, the factory or the starport after the drop, it's kind of like a bad spot to be in. So I'm curious about what your strategy is right now. I see you've made one marine and you're immediately making a tech lab, and you're getting a super fast refinery.
So this is a variation on the build that I actually came up with at IEM, and it favors just an incredibly fast second gas while making marauders. And so the idea is I'm not really vulnerable to early stalker pressure. I can take map control because I'm getting concussive shells, and because I'm getting my second gas so early, I get very fast medevacs, which allows me to apply pressure and harass the Protoss.
Now, when you say you get a really fast medevac, are you just opting to have a medevac out really fast? It's the drop that's useful, or do you double medevac it up?
I don't get a reactor, but I found that one medevac alone isn't terribly useful. The power really increases by quite a bit once you have two. Part of that comes with your ability to kite units, and another part is being able to position your units in multiple places at the same time using the medevacs. Just dropping someone generally doesn't work unless they have their units out of position.
Yeah.
But dropping someone in two different places at the same time usually is more fruitful.
More fruitful? Oh my goodness. I haven't heard that word, I think, once in the entire history of doing the daily, man. I have over 200 episodes. Fruitful? Dude, I paused the game. That is awesome. Is that like a word that, like, goes off in your head when you're watching a replay? Like, you go, fruitful. Like,
I just think of it, the game, it's kind of me towing or sowing a field. And I want to make sure that my field is more plentiful and fruitful than my opponent's.
So it's like Agricola, except actually fun.
I'm pretty sure you just made that word up.
No, Agricola, it's this game. It's like some Puerto Rican game.
It's obviously made up.
Or Agricola. It is like the most insane board. It's like a million pieces. Like, just three people are watching are like actually going to get this joke about, like, oh man, Agricola is, like, stupidly complicated. But anyways, I'm at 527, and I'm resuming in 3, 2, 1, play. I also see you getting Stim, which I definitely like a lot, and you're getting your starport, and I'm starting to see why you got that second gas so early, because you're super broke. Ignoring what you're doing in your main, you're doing this little push, and it is kind of going ish. You kill the sentry and almost kill the stalker, and I see you almost always do that. Is that any reason you wouldn't end up doing this push? Even in cross positions on, like, Metalopolis, I've seen you do this.
It just depends what I see my opponent doing. Some people, like, I tend not to favor this kind of aggression multiple times in a row because people will blind counter it. They'll go really, really fast warp gate or super fast 2-gate. But just the two Marauders and one Marine have a tendency to punish the Protoss early on. The other thing that I'm trying to do here is I know that medevacs supporting stimmed bio
Yeah.
are really efficient in small numbers and tend to become weaker the larger the size of both armies become. So anything I can do early on to trade down units is actually really beneficial in the long run.
Wow, I'm going to pause at 7:03. That is something very profound that you've touched on, because I think that, like, there's this feeling of... I mean, I always joke about, like, the official strategy guide for Starcraft 2 has, like, the spreadsheet where it's like, what counters stalkers? And it's like, marauders, as Kiwikaki would say. Like, and they just kind of go, oh, okay, great. But I mean, it's kind of like the number plays into that, like, hugely. Like, especially in Brood War, like, Zerglings crushed Zealots, or crushed almost anything in small numbers. But the bigger the armies got, the scarier it was. In StarCraft 2, Zerglings are really, really, really good against Marines in small numbers. But, again, the larger the numbers get, it kind of, like, falters. And obviously with the drops, that's going to be helpful. It's helpful, one, because, like, there's just no units to defend. If you're early in the game and he only has 3 Stalkers, he can only defend, like, one place at a time. But I'm curious, like, you still feel like Marines and Marauders work super well against Gateway units, just with the kiting and all that good junk?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see it a number of times in this game.
Yeah.
Anything that can heal and has really high DPS has a really good potential to do a lot of damage. And so you take Marine Marauder, when stemmed, they have incredibly high DPS, they have great mobility. Combine it with Medivacs, which allows them to essentially stay alive forever. And as long as you control well, you can make them so efficient in small numbers. It's really a micro game.
Yeah. And you're pretty comfortable with that. So I'm curious, do you then prefer, if you see him going Colossus, because you go, oh, perfect, not as many Gateway units?
Colossus are the big issue. I'm actually very comfortable against High Templar. Phoenix Void Ray, not a big deal. Colossus are the one thing that I haven't quite figured out. It's actually been my weak point in TVP for a long time. The issue with Colossus, yes, they have less units, but because of the cliff walking ability, they have increased mobility, and so it becomes harder to drop and exploit the terrain as well. Dropping on a cliff when they have Colossus doesn't really mean a whole lot. The other thing is you tend to get to a point, like once they have 6 Colossus, if any vulnerability you have, they can just run you over. It's really hard to defend effectively against that.
Yeah. So I'm currently at 7 minutes and 3 seconds, and I'm going to be resuming in 3, 2, 1, put a... So either way, it looks like you are slowly adding barracks, and looks like you are scouting with this factory. What is the purpose of this factory scout?
The main thing is just to figure out where his army is and what tech he's going. You're going to see in a moment here, I'm going to try and use the factory to bait his units away from where I want to put my drop.
Yep, I see right there you're moving it way north. You're actually landing it on the high ground, but I'm going to ignore that for the time being. And there's the drop going down at the south end. Mainly Marauders, I would assume, to pick off Stalkers a little bit more easily. I see you target firing Stalkers.
The main thing that I've discovered with the drops is if they don't have Stalkers, they can't defend against the drops effectively. And so they're also one of the easiest things to kill with Marauders because they go down so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's this one Stalker that got warped in, and see you later, Stalker. I think you're just going to pop up onto this high ground. I'm still going to be ignoring this factory for the time being, because that's awesome. But either way, in the main, it looks like you still haven't gotten an add-on for the starport. You haven't even, like, traded it with a barracks. Can you explain that a little bit? Because almost always in this matchup, you don't see a naked starport just hanging out. You almost always see it with a reactor on.
Look at my gas.
There you go. But I mean, you're also getting like this +1 weapons upgrade. It is possible to support that on one base. And you are getting this like factory up at the north. Is it just resources, or was it more of like a decision to avoid it?
It's generally what it is initially when you get the starport, there's not enough resources to get the reactor and support it, particularly if you're scouting with the factory.
By the way, I'm going to pause it at 9:44 and then let you continue.
So when you first get the starport, if you're scouting with the factory, there's nothing to build the reactor that you want to build it with.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to build and you don't want to build the reactor on the starport right away, because getting the medevac out super early is critical.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little later on, like right now, I could support the reactor pretty easily, particularly if I wasn't getting these tanks in siege mode. But I still don't want to waste production time, because I don't need a fleet of medevacs right now. What I need is a lot of units and a couple of medevacs so that I can drop and apply pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, as I mentioned before, I find that bio is much stronger in small numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the reason I get the early +1 weapons is to further exploit the fact that my army needs to be strong, and it needs to be strong now. And a little edge that I can get, maybe killing a stalker in one less hit, or killing marines a little bit faster, that all helps with making the drops a little bit more efficient.
Sweet. I'm going to be resuming in 3, 2, 1, playing it, 9:45. Hope you're at least somewhat synced up with me. Now, this sort of junk where you're landing the factory and actually building tanks on his high ground, how much of that is just sort of in the moment, like, yeah, sure, I'll do this?
That was entirely just kind of on a whim. I don't think I've ever done this before or have done it since. It was just like, I was scouting through his main, and I saw he wasn't going Colossus quickly, and he didn't have any kind of way to get on the high ground, so why not build a tank?
But do you think it would have been more effective to just continue to do these medevac drops? Because I see you continuing to drop. And by the way, I just want to note to everyone right there, the best part about a drop is that you can run away. Best part about a drop is you can run away. But I mean, like, again, do you like your decision to do this drop on the high ground?
I mean, consider the fact that I'm basically denying him 5 of the 8 mineral patches at his natural expansion. And I think I don't think I needed 2 tanks, but I think 1 tank easily pays for itself in that regard. The other thing that I'm doing is, by combining the tank with the drops in his main, I'm tying up his army so that he can't really go deal with that efficiently.
It also looks like you're almost always running away when you encounter an army. Maybe trying to pick off a stalker, but just always backing up.
The issue, I mean, it's, as I mentioned a little bit before, I'm really, the only thing I want to kill is stalkers, unless, no, it's really just stalkers, because killing zealots takes too long, they have too much health. Instead of killing a zealot, I'd rather be killing probes or pylons to inhibit their production. But stalkers can get in the way of my drops, and Stalker Colossus is also the main unit composition that I'm trying to avoid them getting as long as possible. So if I can kill stalkers, I make that a little bit harder as well. Dude,
that's like so awesome. Uh-oh, the medevac. Oh, you unloaded in time. Nice. So, I mean, a big thing that I talked a lot about was forcing drops to work, or just getting into the position where drops would begin working. We've seen a little bit of that, but at this point in time, I think this is where most people would start to get confused as to what is a good way to drop right now. Because I've seen the replay, I know you do it more, but I mean, like, what is your mindset on how to pull this off?
I mean, honestly, I don't even need to drop right now. I could just pick up my whole army and attack his main. Game's over. The thing is, you're usually using drops to spread your opponent out and force them to defend multiple locations, but if they're stuck on one base, like, what multiple locations are there? What I could do is attack the back at the same time that I attack the front, but the issue with like asking how do I drop at this point is, the realistic answer is I don't. The next easiest choice in this game is not to keep dropping. It's to just take my army and win.
I'm so happy you said that, because, like, it's so easy to, like, watch you play and to be like, God, I want to beat Kevin. Ugh, I want to make those medevacs. I'm still going to call them dropships, like, half the time in this game, because I am a Brood War player. Like, I love your overlords. But, I mean, like, this sort of play, it's the kind of thing where, like, drops work better the more expansions your opponent has. The fewer expansions they have, the worse it works. Because, like, at this point, I mean, it's kind of cute, the fact that you're still picking off stalkers, but, I mean, just go fucking kill them, dude. Because, I mean, like, again, it's so easy to fall into that trap, I think, where you just kind of, like, get drop addicted. Because, again, it is, like, close positions. Has this ever happened to you where, like, you get yourself in trouble with your drop ships? Like, you keep over-dropping at this point and end up losing?
You remember the game on Scrap at IEM against Huck?
Yeah, I do. That game was awesome. But it was, like, 45 minutes long and epic, so it's, like, very thinly veiled. But, I mean, like, a game like this, have you ever botched by over-dropping?
Not really. I do it enough that I'm pretty good at like finding the holes and stuff. One issue I have been having lately is Protosses have started going Dark Templar to deal with drops. It's really tough to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm actually not going to close this replay really fast. I'm actually going to kind of come back to your base. I'm actually going to rewind quite a bit. Let me actually pause the game so that way I can speed up the rewind. It used to be the case that if it was pause and you hit back, it would go back like 2 minutes. But I'm looking in your base, and I'm curious about what was going on in terms of base building. I'm just around the 15-minute mark right now. So at the start of the game, I think everyone saw that you got this tech lab really fast for the stim, and then you got the starport really fast for the drop, and then you just kind of went for 3 barracks as you could afford it. And then I would say that you probably went for the command center as you could afford it. Is that accurate? You did
yeah, that's pretty good.
But I mean, just as you can afford it, just get the things that are obviously going to be useful. But I'm really curious about the follow-up. Your drop's doing damage in your base. When do you really decide it's a good time to get ghosts now? Because I personally, if I was in that position, I would kind of just keep going Marine Marauder and then keep expanding.
So, a couple things here. In retrospect, I have no idea why I'm going on to 6 barracks. I should have expanded already.
Yeah, you mean a third time?
Yeah, I should be on... The 3rd base should probably be up, and the 4th base should be building.
Really? That fast? Because, I mean, I definitely did see you do that at IEM New York against Huck on Scrap Station. You just, like, expanded like a madman, which I think is just great way to play off drops.
Yeah, because the whole point is the drops keep them contained and give you map control. And in order to beat Stalker Colossus, you need an economic advantage. So that's kind of the theory there. I'm not sure what I was thinking in this game. My new theory that I've been testing with Ghosts is I was saying, like, I get the +1 weapons to make my drops a little bit more effective. I get the fast medevac so I can do the drops early on. The theory that I'm testing next is getting a ghost after the +1 weapons around when I start my command center and actually dropping a ghost with my army.
Huh. Again, because you want to have small numbers versus small numbers, and 1 EMP will just immediately demolish a small amount of ground units?
Right. Consider 3 stalkers versus 3 marauders and a ghost.
Yeah, the marauders win anyways.
Right, but the point is, if you EMP, you just did 240 damage.
I like the way you described that. Instead of saying those stalkers don't have shield anymore, or you just halved the life of 3 units, you did 240 damage. Yeah.
In terms of efficiency, 1 marauder doesn't even come close to that.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind it. Whether or not it's really practical or easy to do is another thing altogether.
Yeah. Might as well test it. It's not like anyone's watching you, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's not like anyone's going to be like, see, I saw you lost a game. What happened? Can you send me the replay? I remember there was this period where my brother was really liking my play, like, a lot. Like, I started to change my Zerg style. And then every time I would, like, lose a game, he'd be like, could you send me those replays? Especially if it was Protoss, because he played Protoss. And he would do it, like, 5 minutes after I lost. He'd be like, hey, dude, I saw you have, like, 3 losses on Icy Cup. Can you just, like, send me all those replays? I'm like, I don't have the replays. Go away. He'd be like, why don't you have the replays, man? Come on. Next time you lose, can you save the replay? Can you just give me a break? Like, well, then I would just send him the replays and cry. So I have the second game of you against Optic Zero loaded up. I'll give you a chance to load that one up. Now, I'm curious, because, like, I think Inca, the player you played last game, is a little bit more well-known player. Optic Zero, I think is a little bit less known of a player. Do you have any experience against him?
I've played him a couple times on ladder. I've generally found he's like a high-ranked ladder player who doesn't have as much experience with the later stages of the game. Like, I feel like in the past when I played him, he was more cheese oriented.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a diplomatic way to say it. Most people would say he's a four-gating piece of shit, but like he's cheese oriented. Oh man, that's so good. Sorry, go ahead. Your wording fruitful, cheese oriented. Oh.
Well, I mean, after the last time I was on the daily a while ago, you said how articulate I was, so you know, I've been practicing, whatnot, talking to myself in the mirror when I go to the bathroom, when I go to class.
I just pretty much talk to myself nonstop. But alright, do you have your game loaded?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Alright, Sweeto Burrito. Alright, I'm going to hit play in 3, 2, 1, play. So we have another map. It's Delta Quadrant. Immediately, I mean, something that I think everyone knows about this map is that the space behind your main is, like, gigantic. Oh god, is that a pain in the ass to deal with drops and banshees from there. So you talked about close positions being something that, you know, motivated you to drop a little more. Now, in terms of terrain here, I would feel very motivated to do a drop, but also the starting positions are, like, super close, like, always. So I don't know if you have any comments on that.
I like drops when, like, I spawn in the right on this position. I would prefer to drop if he spawned north of me, because it's easier to get to that backyard position.
Yeah. But I mean, like, entirely preference aside of positions, I mean, it looks like you're doing your usual junk of, like, making a supply depot really close. Like, what's your opening plan going to be?
I think I'm still doing the fast medevac, although this is a slightly different variation than the one we just saw against Inca. This is a little bit later on the second gas, I think.
Yeah.
I don't actually know.
But I mean, on this map, it doesn't look like you've scouted at all yet. Optic Zero is going to end up doing a very fast early expand, and I figure I would talk about that before anything happens. So, I mean, traditionally, the way people tend to battle early expands is by either doing a really nice timing push or by also expanding themselves. Do you just, like, get giddy when you see an expansion? You're just like, dropping. Is this, like, do you get happy? I want to know, man.
Usually when they expand, that's pretty good for me. I just kind of... I can split their forces real nicely with 3 barracks. That gives me enough units to drop in the back while simultaneously attacking the front. In this game, he expands, and for some reason I decide that instead of waiting until my army is at its strongest, which is when stim and medevacs are out, I decide to attack just before that happens. So I move out with bio without medevacs when they're like building, and stim packs when it's almost done, and just get rolled.
Yeah, I mean, for any Protoss who didn't know, a 1-gate early expand straight into 3 or 4 gates blocks almost everything, especially if you get, like, a fast robo. Like, it's it's super ridiculously impregnable. I mean, even if people go, like, 4 barracks all in with, like, SCVs, it's still pretty easy to defend. I mean, against Banshees and Marines, it's a little bit tougher to hold, but you can still pull it off. So I definitely recommend, like, 1 gateway early expanding. But it looks like you are getting your second gas really fast again, and you're getting the Marauders.
Yeah,
it's concussive shell.
It's a little later than last game, because last game the second gas it started around when the tech lab was going down. This one the gas is going down around when the Marauder comes out.
So I see a second barracks instead of a factory.
Yeah, so this is a new theory I've been playing around with. When I see the Protoss is staying on 1 gas, getting a second barracks before I get my factory.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
So the idea is, if they don't get a second gas, then they're likely doing one of 2 things. They're either fast expanding or they're going mass gateway. And so, if I get a second barracks, it's going to be harder for them to kill me with an all-in, and it's also going to be easier for me to apply pressure if they fast expand.
Oh, interesting. And it looks like the factory is going down as well. Looks like you're getting stim started. Again, the very fast second gas, letting you do both of those at the same time. He's also scouting back into your base. Oh, nope, it looks like an SCV. Looks like you cleaned up that probe that was in the back corner of your main. Yeah, you're making more Mariners. And in the meantime, it looks like he's thrown down his Nexus after building 4 warp gates, canceling 2 of them.
Yeah, it's a little odd.
Well, it seems a little bit unusual, but hey, we don't like to beat him up. Looks like he's also getting a fast robo. And this kind of play, I think, is just fantastic. I just really, really like this a lot. It's just very, very hard to block. And I especially... the common variance for this is to just go 3 gateway and a robo, or just to go 4 gateway straight up. I prefer the robo, because if you get an immortal, you can kill off the destructible debris back here and take a 3rd really fast. Expansion! Nom 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 nom. I'm such a Brood War fucking player, man. Listen to me. It's like, you can expand again! It's like, Sean, you haven't built any units yet. But here's your push. This is very QXC-esque of you. Was there a motivation for this, or did you just, like, do it?
I wanted to see if it would work.
And do you do a lot of this in your games, just going, oh, let's give it a shot?
Yeah, I think I might have scared Puck off. He got tired of me getting raffle stomped by him because I was just testing stuff out. One thing that I realized, so there were 2 main things. I'd like to actually watch this part where my whole army gets killed.
Yeah, I'm watching it. I'm following it.
Watch it from my view, though.
Okay, so
because what you'll notice, the fog there mucks up my vision, so I try and focus fire the stalkers, but I can't actually see them.
Okay, so I'm at 710, and we're going to the QXC cam. So there I see you pulling back, and we're at 715. It looks like you stop shooting at the zealots. You back through the fog, and oh, the zealot! Yeah, I see you trying to click on him, and there you get 1 shot off. And then pull back, and now it's panic time. And it looks like you did opt to get the reactor on that starport. I'm actually going to pause. I'm at 740. I hope that you're remotely close to that time. You ready to sync up, baby?
Yeah, I'm good.
3, 2, 1, hit and play. So it looks like you did go for the reactor on that starport. Is that because you were doing like a 2 barracks style, so you wanted the extra medevacs to do double drops?
Right, so the reason is, when I get the 2nd barracks before the factory, I end up with extra gas when I get to the starport. So if I get that reactor, I can support it more easily, and I have more barracks units because I got the 2nd racks earlier. Mm-hmm. So it's more of an issue of I need medevacs rather than I need more units.
Oh, cool. So you're in Crisis Zone USA right now. I'm even going to open up the resource counter just to show how screwed you are. So now I'm going to actually pause at 836, and there's a lot of units in your base. And at this point, I'm going to separate this into 2 halves. So on one half, I want to ask, control-wise, ignoring all the decision-making of what buildings you're going to make when, how are you intending on maneuvering around your base, and what units are you going to peel where, and what is like your general goal with what you have?
So the idea, number 1 thing, is make the battle last as long as possible. The reason for that is my army is able to attrition his because of the fact I have medevacs.
Yeah, you can heal.
The second thing, pardon?
Yeah, you can heal, yeah.
Right. The next thing is I need to kill the stalkers first. That's number 1 issue, because I know once his army doesn't have stalkers in it, I can basically kite the zealots forever, and I can easily micro against the immortals and lose almost nothing.
Yeah, yeah. When you say micro against the mortals, you mean like abuse the fact that marauders have slightly longer range?
Yeah, so it's a combination of the fact that marauders have 6 range, immortals have 5. Immortals are very slow, particularly once hit by concussive shells, and marauders do garbage damage against marines. And so basically what that looks like is the immortal attacks a marine, the marine falls back, then the immortal gets close enough, maybe it hits a marauder, that marauder falls back, and then all the other units just kill it.
Nice. Now, I also want to ask about your decision-making, because the first thing I want to start with is that there's this reactor that was built on this barracks. I'm actually going to hit the B button and back up to 8 minutes and 20 seconds. This reactor was started before this bust came into the front of your base. So, like, as you were losing all those marauders in the center, you threw down a reactor. And that, to me, felt like a little bit like, ugh, because I felt like you really needed to begin producing marines then. Or am I wrong in that statement?
You know, that's pretty interesting. I'm not really sure.
Because, like, in my eyes, I told myself the rule. I don't know how accurate this is, but this is what I still follow. If you have time to build a reactor, like if you're attacking and he like is not going to be attacking you for a long time, that's when I build a reactor. But it seemed like in this particular spot, it was like kind of getting in the way, and it seemed freaky. I don't know if you have any opinions about it, like whether you should have canceled at that point, or whether you should. It was good that you let it finish, because again, my gut instinct is just like, ooh, I always freak out at reactors.
Okay, replay desync. Let me load it back up. I think you're right in that I should have just produced units out of it instead of trying to build the reactor.
I'm wondering if there's ever a circumstance where you would want something, maybe not this bad to happen, but something like, yeah, you take a little damage, but your reactor finishes, so you can immediately begin putting pressure on. I don't have an answer, but I just wanted to posit that. Also, I see you getting this, the pre-igniter and the Hellions. Is that a response to, like, a bunch of stuff in your base? Or is that just, like, part of your normal plan on one base pressure in early span?
So, the third barracks and the pre-igniter Hellion are a response to the fact that I was like, I just lost a really important battle, and I should probably lose this game. And I was pretty confident, actually, at that point that I could win, as strange as that sounds, considering how the position looks.
Yes. I would agree with you.
The reason for that, like, I've played Optic Zero before, and I was underwhelmed by his play. And so I figured if I was given an opportunity to kind of flex my micro and my drop, I would be able to get back into the game. And the only way I knew that would be possible is with as many units as possible, like that I could produce, given my production structures, and I wanted to make them as good as possible. So pre-igniter to try and snipe probes to deal with zealots, and the third barracks, the reactor on the barracks, so that I could get as many Marines and Marauder out as I could to make use of my dropships.
So I just want to try to do a little recap to like boil down this long pause we've had in the middle of this game. So whenever there are a bunch of units in your base, you make the battle go on as long as possible. You pick off stalkers, you retreat a lot, you wait for your medevacs to get out. And in terms of the what the hell do I build half, would you recommend, if you are ever feeling really screwed, of going for pre-igniter, going for reactors, going for third barracks? Was that more of Optic Zero influence, or is that more of when you're in this terrible position influence?
This is like, I realized I was in a bad position, and I decided to try and catch up via pressure instead of trying to take my own expansion.
Yeah.
And cool. I also figured that the only way I would survive was to have more units.
Yeah.
And so I just started building whatever I could. Pre-igniter is always... I think pre-igniter is one of the better choices when you're behind, because it allows you really good options to kill probes, and killing probes is a good way to catch back up.
Yeah. So I've resumed. I'm at 8:35 right now, and I see you darting around, and here it looks like you picked off another stalker. And there's more of that kiting action. And this just looks a little... to the untrained eye, it might look like just panic micro, just stop, move. But very clearly, you're wiggling around here and beginning to pick off the stalker a little bit more. This Immortal, surprisingly, only has 2 kills. Surprising because, again, it's so easy to just have it, like, blast off a Marauder super easily. And there's more restimming, and it looks like you're not even really engaging some of those units, even taking hits on buildings, and even bringing the mule out. He's about to die anyways, no problem. And Optic Zero inadvertently left like an entire army at the front of his base. I think if you macroed a little bit better, he could have won, but... Either way, bravo micro, Kevin. Superhero! So, I'm actually going to pause again. You're bringing SCVs into the battle. Is this just to distract the Zealots so you can pick the Stalkers off? Do you ever intend on pulling these SCVs back?
Honestly, they're probably going to die. No.
Alright, let's go ahead and resume. I'm resuming, alright? We're at 9:57. I didn't know if there was, like, that much thought, because, I mean, when I asked about the micro, you had, like, a long answer about kiting Zealots and Immortals and picking off Stalkers to enable the battle to go on longer. I'm like, what about those SCVs? You're like, I don't know, I just made a box and moved them. That seems like pretty reasonable. And then suddenly, in a whirl of magic, you're alive and you're fine. And
well, check out the income tab.
Uh-oh. Now, this is the one thing that really surprised me at this stage. You just load up a medevac. In your main, you have exactly 3 units and 2 medevacs, and you just went for it. I was really curious about the reasoning behind this. Is it again... Oh, actually, now that I think of it, it's the same thing as before. You know army numbers are low. You said that you liked medevac in small numbers because Marauders, Marines can just pick off Stalkers. So you just survived a big battle. And in your eyes, is that a good time to drop? Did I hit the nail on the head?
I mean, when you bring it up, like, why did you drop him when you just lost your whole army and you're clearly behind? It seems pretty unreasonable. When I was playing this game, it seemed like the right idea.
Yeah.
I just wanted to apply pressure because the thing is, when you're so far behind economically, the longer you wait, the more behind you become because their resource income is so much higher. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter. I can't wait in my base and hope that he's not going to attack me or hope that he tries to all-in me and I win again. I have to do something.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like you tragically fly this medevac directly into some Stalkers and are even farther behind. Optic Zero is running a little bit dry on probes in the main. It looks like there's some magic micro going on in the center, and as usual, you're picking off those Stalkers quite responsibly. And suddenly you're within 10 food of them, which is pretty nifty. So at what point do you steer... Is there a point where you're starting to go, maybe drops might not be so good, because, like, right the very instant that you just suddenly got a second lease on life, you went to drop, and at this point you're kind of just massing up.
Yeah, when I saw he had all the Stalkers just sitting in his main, and I lost that drop, that was a little disappointing, because I definitely could have dropped somewhere else and made that work. But it also kind of gave me hope. If he's leaving Stalkers in his main like that, it probably means he's scared of drops, which means that attacking his front is a good idea.
And can DD do, you kill off 1 million zealots. Oh yeah, please line them up more. Nom 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 nom. Oh, and look at Colossus. Oh, there's some dessert. And then, yeah, wow. And then suddenly, in a whirl of magic, you're winning again. And, I mean, I want to just pause right now at 14-15 and note that, like, back in your base, you are broke, you're producing out of everything you can. You have some queued Marauders here on this barracks, but even if it weren't queued, that could easily just be dumped into Hellions and Medevacs. Do you ever have a point where you're intending to expand with this? Or really, were you... I mean, I'm serious about it. You're laughing because, like, well, I almost died, and then I lost in Medevac with, like, half my army, and then I almost won. So, come on, it needs to expand. But, like, seriously, like, when you're... Because I know you've done more than exactly one comeback in your life. And I'm curious when you get that urge to stop being like, oh, I need a battle because I'm behind. And you start to get that, oh, maybe I'm not behind, time to expo.
Usually... one of the hallmarks of being behind is they have an expansion and you don't. Mm-hmm. And if he hadn't lost his whole army and had actually given up his expansion instead, that probably would have been when I expanded.
Huh. I see. Okay.
The whole point is, like, if he expands and his expansion is down, and then I choose to expand then, I end up basically having a weaker version of his build. I'm going to be behind economically. My timings for when my increased income are going to be later than his. And so I choose to go on the aggression so that I get different, more varied options. And we're not playing the same game where I'm losing.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It totally does.
Once I kill his expansion, suddenly if I take an expansion, not only am I the aggressive player, but I'm ahead in the economic game.
Yeah, yeah. So I just went ahead and resumed it, so that way everyone could see that I thought I had the game won. Oh my god, GG. And then, you did. Optic Zero has left the game. There's like no exchange of GG. That's so awesome. That's like if your opponent was like, GG, and you were like, indeed. Just let it Alright, so I'm going to see if anyone can even see the stream if they want to pose any questions about that. People are being told that it's like not even online. Well, you know what? I guess we're just going to have a short daily today. Well, that's kind of terrible. I guess people are like, there's no questions. There's just people going, when is it going to be up? When is it going to be alive? I hate this. Like, ooh, sorry. I genuinely wonder if the regular FLV recording's okay. This MP4 should be fine. But either way, Kevin, thank you for showing up. I'm going to ask the following question to you because I think a lot of people will say this. They'll say, Kevin. Apparently they're all 12 in this story. Kevin, when should I stop dropping? Like, in your eyes, have you ever watched a game of yours and been like, I was winning, and if only I hadn't have dropped, I'd have won that game?
Usually the time to stop dropping is when they've committed fully to dropping. And it's abstract to talk about, and it's difficult to explain. But basically,
sure, go for it.
If they spread their army out in such a way that it's literally not possible to drop, like you can't get on their cliff, you can't safely put units down, and there's no real exposed areas, that's usually when it's time to stop dropping and to start taking advantage of the fact that your opponent is scared.
Yeah, and that's something that's really hard to judge at like a lot of the lower levels, but I wanted to just reemphasize a few things before we end up wrapping up. One thing that you did so good, Kevin, you consistently do so good, is that when you move up with the medevac, and if there's units there, you just move back. Or if you drop and you see units, you just pick up and you run away. We on the Newbie Tuesday, there was a lot of the sort of like, oh, I'm going to drop units, and then they're all just going to die. And I'm gonna go to my clipboard that says, did I drop this game? And I'm going to go, check. Very good, excellent, effective. And again, like the best part about a drop is you can always leave. You can kill off 3 probes and leave, and literally you've gotten 3 free probes, and I like that.
Right.
But even like that feeling that you were saying, like about, now it's time to take advantage of the fact that he's scared and expand. I don't want any silver or gold level player trying to really figure out how to know when their opponent is scared. Because I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but I don't think that you can even detect that properly until you're playing very well in Diamond.
I mean, it's definitely tough. The part of the issue is it's hard to tell what your opponent's doing if your opponent's not doing what they want to be able to do. And at lower levels of play, it's full of people who are like, well, I meant to do this, but I don't have the game sense or the mechanics to execute it. But when I play against Kiwikaki or Inca or Huck, and their army is spread out through their entire main, and I have 5 Colossus that I can see sitting at their gold, I know they're not planning on attacking me anytime soon. They're doing exactly what they want to, and that is preventing me from dropping. And so that's when I need to take more bases and possibly launch a full frontal assault because I know their army's spread out.
Awesome. The power of medevacs. Doesn't hurt to ever have more medevacs. So with that, Kevin, we're going to have a marginally shorter daily. It's going around 48 minutes right now. Pretty good. Have any last words before I sign off?
Yeah, I do. I got to do all my shout-outs, man.
Perfect. Do it.
You don't sound excited for me.
Oh,
that's okay. You don't have to be.
I'm wearing a purple shirt. How could I be anything but excited?
So, check out my Twitter, QXC0000. Follow me. I post when I play.
How many zeros is that? I need to know the number.
That's 4 zeros. It's 4 zeros.
Okay, cool.
I'll post when I play games that are streamed. I post when I put replays up on the Root Gaming website, which is root-gaming.com.
Yeah,
check out the team. Post on our forums. Players like me, Drewby, Katz, Kiwikaki, Slush, Suggy. I think those are our active guys right now.
Yeah.
And also, I have a Facebook page, QXC. You can check me out there. All my Twitter stuff goes to the Facebook page. So if you hate Twitter, you can like me on Facebook or whatever, and you'll see all my updates and stuff. And I have also started making instructional StarCraft 2 content. The website for that is nerdstomper.com. Go check it out. We've got some featured videos that you can check out for free, and then we've got some stuff, pro-level commentary that you get with a subscription.
All right, nice. Ballin', bejugular. And with that, I got to make my announcements. I'm going to say goodbye to you, QXC. Goodbye!
Goodbye, sir.
All right, cool. Muted. It's just me now. Okay, so Kevin can still hear me. I see his audio levels doing things, but you guys can't hear Kevin. But just want to once again say that I will be doing the shoutcasting for StarCraft 2 at BlizzCon. Doing shoutcasting with my brother. with Artosis, and of course with Blizzard employee Robert Simpson. It's going to be awesome. Also, I am going to be doing the EG Masters Cup, sponsored by MSI, the following weekend. And then the weekend after that, I'm going to be going to Dallas, Texas to shoutcast for Major League Gaming. And then 2 weeks after that, I'm going to DreamHack in Sweden, covering all their good StarCraft action there. So I am very, very excited. Hopefully I'll be able to make it to the Team Liquid dinner. And if not, just come to me at BlizzCon, because I'd love to meet you. And of course, Funday Monday next week, submit a replay of you playing a 3v3 or 4v4, where every person on your team announces the one unit that will be making all game long, and no cheating, no being like, I said High Templar, but I can morph those into Archons. Either High Templar or Archons. I know if you go Archons, the High Templar are going to exist for a while, but morph them as fast as possible. Try not to cheat. Send those replays to Monday at day9.tv. Newbie Tuesday next week is players losing to big Colossus balls. Always, there's a lot of different ways for you to lose to them. It might just be one Colossus in a mix and you lost because he had a good timing push. It might be that you lost because his economy swung out of hand and the Colossus was just a formality and wasn't the real reason you lost. Either way, the Colossus is the centerpiece that made you feel like you lost. Submit the replay to Tuesday at day9.tv. So with that, I'm out. I'm done. I'm going to get some Kentucky Fried Chicken because that just sounds good. Just sounds tasty. I'm out. Peace, peace, peace. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.